Hi, this is Josh Snow, Director of IP Engineering at Vunetrix Network Monitor. Vunetrix is used to monitor the health of IP surveillance networks. It's a Windows-based software that allows you to monitor the overall health of your IP surveillance solution by managing things like network uptime, bandwidth, CPU load, memory on servers, and disk space and disk storage management. So let's go in and take a look. You can see that there's any number of privileges you can assign and restrict access to certain features within Vunetrix. I'm going to go in and log in with my full administrator rights here so we can show you everything in the system. You can notice that I'm using a web portal to be able to access Vunetrix. Essentially what that allows you to do is anywhere that you have intranet access and secure access to your server, you can access it via a web browser. So here's my home page here. Let's take a look at the main review results, which is the main dashboard. That's going to be where you're going to be doing most of your management of the system. So here at the Vunetrix dashboard, I can see everything that's on my IP surveillance network. So let's start here with just a brief explanation on the root server. So my root server is also where my Genetec Security Center 5 video server is. So my Vunetrix main software is there, as well as my recording server for Genetec. You can see that I have some cameras that I'm monitoring here for ping, and there's some bandwidth, and I'll go into those in a moment. I'm looking at access control. I'm taking a look at an entire switch. I've got some temperature probes, which I'll explain. And then I'm monitoring a VM. And then I have remote probes. So I have a Dell R210 server. And that's key. So we can monitor servers anywhere across the nation or in the same rack. And so through one dashboard, you can look at multiple server storage devices. So let's go back up to here the main server. First, you're going to see disk free here. You're going to see each of my Ethernet cards, so NIC1, NIC2. As I hover over it, you can see that a quick snapshot of what's happening on that particular sensor shows up. And then I have memory and CPU load. I'm actually monitoring the IP video service application, so basically telling me is Genetec up or not. And it's also doing a report and a history of that, so you know how many times you may have had a Genetec go down in the last month, the last week, those type of things. So let me go through in a little more detail on some of the key sensors. So disk free. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to take a look at the disk free sensor. Let's just look at the live data. So you can see I'm at 69% on my main D drive here. So then if I go to 2 days, it's going to take a look like this. So 86%. Now I'm at 69%. I just changed out some of my disk space on drive C, so you can see that that's that green line as it went back here. But let's just focus on D for now. So I was 86% on the 19th, and now it's the 21st, I'm at 69%. Based on those particular principles, I'm going to run out of space before my 60-day requirement for compliance. So as an end user or an integrator, I can add storage, change frames a second or resolution before I run out of storage space. So it allows you to dynamically manage your storage in a way that you can say, before you run out of storage, you can say, hey, let's add some, let's change the resolution so that we can maintain compliance. And also lets you report on your client compliance of that. So if I click on 30 days here, you're going to be able to see I had a big trend here on the 3rd to where there's a huge drop for a few days. So we added a bunch of cameras to the system. So it allows you to see those type of things in real time and report on them so you can audit your entire system over a year. And as an integrator, you can add some value to your end users and say, hey, we need to add storage. And you can base that decision based on real data. So let's come back out to the Genetec server and look at a couple more things. So memory, extremely important. What's happening on your network as far as memory? So let's say you can see that their percent available memories here, I'm at 58%. It goes down to 40 at some points. So if you're having an issue on your network or your actual server, and your megapixel cameras are starting to freeze, your client's starting to freeze, you're going to notice memory may be peaking, and they're going to be able to dial right down to that solution to say and give this report to your integrator, to your manufacturer, your VMS partner, whoever it may be, to say, hey, we're running out of memory space. We need to do something about this. So as you have an issue on the system, you can go back right to that time and see what was happening on the network and on the servers. Same thing with CPU load. I don't have many cameras on my demo unit here, so it's not going to be hitting it very hard, but you can see I'm mapping every single CPU here on my 6-core processor, and the max that I'm running is about 20%. If my slack was above 50% and my end user wanted to add some 5 megapixel cameras, I'm probably going to say no, because the algorithms that those require for compression, for the H.264, those type of thing, may push the CPU load too high, and that's going to reduce overall performance. So you can see it's a key metric in managing how and when you add change cameras. So the final thing on the Genetec server that we'll take a look at is a packet sniffer. So if you had a problem, I've had certain cameras that use goofy protocols that do some strange things to the network, you can take a look at the NIC card on your main recording server. So first of all, let's just look at the live data. So we can see what type of traffic's coming across: UDP, TCP traffic, DNS, remote control traffic. So this is good information, but really where the great information comes is in the top lists. So I can take a 15-minute snapshot, a window saying who's connecting to who. So I can see that this particular connection, my main recording server at 77.201 is taking up 46% of my overall bandwidth. So that's one of my top connections. So you can see that then it also charts that over here for you as well. I can switch to things like top protocols. Is it TCP? Is it UDP? Is it HTTP? So it's HTTP is my main protocol here, and that's taking up 59% of my overall bandwidth. I switch to top talkers, and I'm going to see that my MJPEG 5 megapixel camera is one of my main cohorts, and then of course the recording server. So this allows you to easily dial in to see who are your main users on your particular system. Who is the people that are communicating the most? What cameras, what edge devices, and so this lets you easily dial right down to that and puts it in a nice chart format so you can make some good decisions of how to manage your system. The other thing that I have seen is certain VMSs will start to use dynamic ports very strangely. And so if you're starting to see a lot of port traffic, you can go down here and see what's happening on what port, who's talking on what port to each other, and you can give that information to your VMS partner. So let me go back here and go back just down the line here. So we have main building cameras up here in our HQ in Seattle, Washington. You can see the Access 1347 is not plugged in right now. It's down, but in acknowledged state. So I've acknowledged that that's down. So you see it's just one exclamation point. Whereas the Access M1001 is in complete critical state because I haven't acknowledged that. So that's the alarms that are going to do. What those alarms can do is they'll show up on a dashboard, they can play a sound, and they can also email out a notification that you're in alarm status. So let's take a look at the first camera that I have up on the system, which is the IQI 755 5 megapixel MJPEG camera. The first question is the camera up and running and on the system? So let's just look at live data here. I'm going to go to my live data tab. You can see, yeah, we're looking great. We're way below 100 millisecond threshold, which is where you're going to see, if you start to go over that consistently, you're going to see some degradation. There I don't have very little packet loss. Maximum ping time's great. So we can just take a look at 2 days, 30 days. So we're looking good. You know, on the 27th is when I installed this camera on this particular system, so it's been up ever since. The real world application of this as an integrator, you can see if the end user's network is up to snuff and hasn't been running for the time of period that you've requested it to. So if you go out on site and you're trying to troubleshoot the server, but the network's having problems, you should focus on the network first. So after we looked at ping, let's take a look at the bandwidth sensor. So this particular sensor allows me to see the bandwidth of that particular camera right from the camera port. So you can see this one's been up around 12 megs and it's gone down to 5.8 megs. So you can see the traffic in, traffic out, if there's any unknown protocols. So this allows you to see how that camera is affecting the rest of the network and really take some of that mystery out of megapixels, like to say. So essentially, you know, 5 megapixel H.264, 5 megapixel MJPEG, certain frames a second, you can actually see how it's running on the network. So if the calculations you originally made are actually what's happening on the network. So you can see that, you know, based on motion, based on when we've tweaked the cameras, this camera has gone up and down as far as bandwidth. Same thing's happening on the rest of the cameras here. So certain access cameras that we have. The unusual sensor is a good one because basically what that does is it basically says it's unusual for this 1 hour interval of 332 kilobits a second is unusually low for this hour of the week. So it basically runs an analytic based on what it's seen in the past. Doesn't mean anything's wrong, but you can draw your eye there to say, hey, I should take a look at that. Maybe something's wrong. Maybe there isn't people there today. Maybe the motion's off on it. So you can investigate it and it kind of points you to that. So let's go back out to the main dashboard once again here. Here's some of the cameras we were talking about. You can go out and just ping individual devices. So things like an access control panel, an intrusion panel, don't have a lot of statistics, but you can just say, are you up and alive on the network? And if those are down or have been down over the last 3 months, 6 months, it's something you're going to need to know about and address. Here's something that you might be interested in, the SMC switch. So on the switch, I'm actually be able to create a virtual patch panel here. So let me dive into the switch here, and you can see that I'm mapping each port here, and I've labeled each one. So as an end user or integrator, you can map out everything that you want on those particular ports, name them, and you can go in and see how much bandwidth a particular device is, and see how your overall aggregated bandwidth is affecting your customer's network. So coming right down here, it's got an unusual on one of these. It's unusually low for this day. You can see I have a Mubotix Q24 camera on port 11. That's actually been moved around a little bit, so you can see the bandwidth's really low right now. Let's just pick on let's pick on port 24 here. Let's look at live data. So it's the same thing as the camera bandwidth, but I'm actually looking from the switch's perspective. So traffic in, traffic out, last 2 days, last 30 days. It allows you to give a snapshot and you can report on this and see how each individual switch port's bandwidth and uptime has affected the network. So let's come back out here and let's take a look at some of these temperature probes. I'll show you in the map, but essentially what this allows you to do is have temperature probes anywhere in your facility, data center, maybe a hospital that's got some medical stuff, and refrigeration devices, those type of things. You can monitor temperature anywhere and it's going to report back in here and you can alarm on that. So let me just click on one of these. So you can set the alarm critical thresholds and report on the different temperature settings in your facility as you want. So you can see that we've gone from 76.31 degrees down to 68.4, which is just a few days ago. So depending on what your facility's temperature needs are, you can use this as a great compliance, a great audit, and a great alerting mechanism to make sure that you're within the ranges that you specified for your particular equipment or area. And we did talk about real briefly on the remote probe. So I have a Dell R210 server, which is running Milestone at this point, and you can see that it's disk freeze reporting. So this could be in a completely other location across the country. You can have as many remote probes as you want. So that allows you to manage your entire system from a single dashboard. Let me go in and show you a couple other things here. The mapping feature. So I'm able to visualize everything that's happening in Vunetrix on a single mapping interface. So the guard who's sitting out front, the person who's not necessarily the network engineer but still could help you watch and make sure things are up, is going to be able to see things that are happening on the network. So let's just start here with some of the cameras. So this camera is running at 1.5 megabits a second. You can see the camera icon is in Access M3014. And you can see the general location. So that engineer is going to know right where to go. Same here with the Pelco Cerex camera. The temperature probes are maybe in 2 clinic offices, and you can see the exact temperature that's happening at that time. You can hover over it and get a really good idea of what's happening. And you can use this to be able to go up and down and see what's the temperature on, what's the last scan, the last update, those type of things. This you can see it's all wired back to a single switch, that SMC switch I showed, and this allows you to see where that switch is, and then someone who doesn't know where it is can go right into this and see what's happening on those ports. Same thing with the IQS 755, you can see the bandwidth there. And on access control, it's kind of unique. We're able to look at the master access panel and see how the door controllers are tied into that panel. So giving a visual representation of your access control system so you know exactly how it's wired can be very powerful and save time. You can see that this particular server is in red. That's because it's in a disk-free error. So there's basically it's gone down below the critical threshold. So now it actually represents red on the map. So it allows you to just go right to that server and know something's wrong. And so I've actually broken out Genetec on our SC5 server as that particular video service. So there's particular applications that you wanted to break out, bandwidth, the IP video service like I have here, temperature, fans, whatever. We could do that. So it allows the map to really be a good tool to see what's happening. And the WAN interface shows the aggregated bandwidth that you may be presenting to a wide area network or your customer's network so that they can tell how exactly the amount of bandwidth that you're presenting to their network is running over a month, 2 months, 3 months, those type of things. Finally, what I'll show you here is reporting. So Vunetrix is unique is that it's got a built-in relay server. And what that means is you don't have to set up a customer's SMTP outgoing mail server. Once you set it, you can let it go, and as long as the firewall is open on the exterior of your customer, it'll send a report to you every hour, every day, every week, every month. So you can have an idea of what's happening on your customer's network after you leave the site and install it, or if there's an issue, you can be having these come to your desk, your email every morning, and you can monitor it before the customer gets in the next day. So let's just take a quick look at this report. So this could be coming right to you. So let's just say, okay, the disk-free report. I showed this to you in Vunetrix, but here it is, showing 84% going down to 74% for the time period that we're looking at, the last 24 hours. So it's taking a good chunk. If that was one of your customers, you might want to say, hey, we're going to be way out of compliance. Wonder what's happening. Is the compression set wrong? Is there a lot of motion? It allows you to go and talk to your customer about that particular thing. And just scrolling down, you can see the NIC card, the traffic in, the traffic out in here. but it allows you to really have a great understanding of what's happening on your customer's network, and you can use this to really strengthen the service contract offering. So 6 months in, you can go out, pull a report, and review it with your customers to look at the overall health of their network. Have their cameras been up? What's the bandwidth been like on their cameras? Is their memory, their CPU load been maintained like you recommended and how you designed it? So you can start to really make some good design recommendation based on what's actually happening, not on what you think is happening. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Please contact me at info@vunetrix.com if you need more information, or take a look at vunetrix.com. Thanks, and have a great day.